Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So the other day I was looking in our comments section and I noticed one comment made by Luckyverse. He asked, what would have happened if Anakin was found as a baby instead of being found at an older age? And I was like, wow, that would be an excellent episode idea. Then immediately after I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be a really tough episode to make. Thanks for making my life more difficult, Luckyverse. So first, how would the Jedi have found Anakin? As you know, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi administered a blood test on young Anakin, and found out his midichlorian readings were off the chart. Generally, any reading above 6,000 meant that a person was suitable for Jedi training. It isn't unreasonable to assume that in the core and mid-rim planets, blood tests and vaccinations were administered to babies upon birth, and amongst those tests would be one for midichlorian readings. And the readings from those tests would be accessible to the Jedi recruiters from the Acquisition Division, who, by the way, were the most hated Jedi in the entire galaxy. They literally went around stealing Force-sensitive newborns from their parents. Well, by stealing I mean they did get their consent from the parents. And by consent I mean consent. Anyway, on a planet like Tatooine, which resides outside of Republic space and is run by the Hutts, it's less likely such tests existed, and it's even less likely the Hutts would have let Jedi recruiters run around freely gathering data. But it is possible during times of turmoil or a natural disaster, like the Great Drought of Tatooine, that charitable organizations would arrive on planet and deliver relief and some basic healthcare. Alderaanians and Naboo were known for sending such missionary groups. Gotta love those bleeding heart hippies. And it's conceivable that after administering a blood test to a newborn Anakin Skywalker, that some kind soul would notify the Jedi Council, knowing that any life would be better than a life of slavery. Okay, so we got that out of the way, but would Anakin still have joined the dark side? Well, Anakin is taken by the Jedi to their temple as an infant, so he won't remember his mother, which is one less emotional attachment he'll have to worry about. If you guys remember, Anakin's emotional bonds with his mother led him to slaughter an entire Tusken Raider village. He even killed their massives. That cold-hearted bastard. Anyway, his life in the Jedi Temple would have been tough, but fair, and much better than the life of slavery he would have known. And this easier life would have allowed Anakin to better cultivate his inborn natural kindness and compassion.
But what surprised people was how kind he was. He cared deeply about his friends, and looked out for them until the end.
But it was also that compassion that carried him over to the dark side. Although within the constraints of the strict Jedi Order, it would have been much harder for him to develop the same emotional attachments. And better yet, he would have been trained under the watchful eye of Yoda, who was the most powerful and experienced Jedi in the Order. He literally had been training younglings for a millennia, and had much more experience than Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Qui-Gon Jinn was kind of like David Bowie of the Jedi. He was a wise rock star who had uncovered the secrets of the universe, but at the same time, you would never give him responsibility over a small child. As a matter of fact, his first apprentice, Xanatos, was also considered too old to train and had gone to the dark side. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, well, he was barely an adult when he started training Anakin. When Skywalker reached the right age, Yoda would have chosen a much more suitable master form. Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious would have still heard of this remarkably powerful Jedi youngling, but would have had a much tougher time influencing him. So, in this alternate scenario, how would events have changed on Tatooine and Naboo without Anakin? When Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Padme land on Tatooine in search for a new hyperdrive, Anakin wouldn't have been there to help them. It's very possible that they wouldn't have gotten the hyperdrive from Watto. It's also possible that this would have delayed them long enough for Darth Maul to catch up with them, forcing a prolonged duel on the planet. There are way too many factors involved to predict who would win this duel on Tatooine, but during the duel on Naboo, the conditions heavily favored Maul. Obi-Wan Kenobi was separated from his master, and Qui-Gon Jinn's acrobatic Ataru lightsaber form was confined in the limits of the Theed Royal Palace reactor core. Why does almost every pinnacle duel in Star Wars take place around a reactor core, and why does the loser always have to fall down the reactor core? Anyway, going on to Naboo, Anakin would have never been a part of the small starfighter force that manages to destroy the droid control ship, which means a lot of Gungans would have died and the Separatist Alliance would have easily won the day, speeding up Darth Sidious's plan to sow chaos in the galaxy. Instead, Anakin would have been safely tucked away in the Jedi Temple, still training with practice remotes, which is what normal 9-year-old Jedis should be doing. After all, exposing a small child to the horrors of war is not only irresponsible and criminal, but can also lead to mental trauma and developmental issues later on in life. And not to mention a tendency to beat your wife and join the dark side. So is Anakin still the Chosen One? Of course he is. So how can he be the Chosen One without joining the Emperor? This is where it gets kind of tricky. Many Jedi, like Obi-Wan, believe bringing balance to the Force meant destroying the Sith.
You were the Chosen One! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
But what actually happened was Anakin helped destroy both the Jedi Order and the Sith Order, which brought true balance to the Force. Since he most likely will now remain on the light side of the Force, he won't be in the Emperor's inner circle, and he wouldn't have been there to assist Palpatine to kill Mace Windu. But at the same time, this confrontation probably would have never happened, because Mace Windu was tipped off about the Chancellor by Anakin in the first place. The Emperor's Order 66 would still take place, but Palpatine would be without his chief enforcer. And although the majority of the Jedi will still have been destroyed, many more would have escaped. And leading those escaped Jedi would be Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mace Windu, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker, the leaders of a robust resistance and Jedi remnant force. And that's how that alternate version of Star Wars would have turned out. Pretty cool, right? Oh, and one last thing. C-3PO would have never been built. And guys, that is our theory, and tell us what you think about it. Do you see any holes in it? Do you have anything to add? And once again, we'd like to thank Luckyverse for giving us inspiration for this video. And if you guys have any questions for us, whether they're personal or about Star Wars, feel free to like us on Facebook and send your questions there. Somewhere down the road, we're going to collect all those questions together and create a Q&A episode where we answer all your questions. So, thanks for joining us once again, guys, and if you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.